So a huge welcome to everyone tonight. We're halfway through our virtual careers week hosted by School Notices and our partners Towergate Insurance. We're delighted to be live to lower and upper six pupils from Bradfield, Marlborough College, Downhouse, Dean Close, Cheltenham Ladies College, Camford, St Mary's Carn, Bryanston and Westonbirt, not to mention a fair few interested parents. Every night this week we've had two unique speakers from a diverse array of businesses, trying to provide you with an insight into what they do, how and why they got involved, some of the pitfalls to avoid, and why they might recommend their chosen business to you. Tonight is no different, and we are delighted to have Claire Hamilton-Russell, an expert with over 30 years' experience in family law, and Alex Heslop and a team from Jaguar Land Rover, who leads over 1,000 engineers to make JLR the most forward-thinking car manufacturer in the world. Each will speak to you for about 15 minutes, keeping it relevant, interesting and engaging, hopefully, and hopefully dispel some of those mysteries around your career choices, which might seem a little bit tricky at the moment. We encourage everybody to use the Q&A facility at the bottom of your screen, and we'll pull those questions and we'll put them to Claire and Alex at the back of the webinar, the end of the webinar. Before that, I mentioned that we're working with Towergate on this webinar series. Towergate Insurance are a leader in providing bespoke insurance coverage to schools and individuals, and they've been working remarkably closely with the independent school sector and selected charities for many years. So here to explain a little bit more is a quick word of welcome from Jo Taylor of Towergate.
Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Jo from the education team at Towergate, and we're thrilled to be supporting this week-long event in collaboration with School Notices. We're passionate about education. It's a sector that we've worked in for many years, and we're always looking for opportunities and ways in which we can give something back to the sectors in which we work. What better way to do that, especially given what we've all been through in the last 18 months to 2 years, than to host an event like this and help our young people in making what can be some pretty difficult decisions. We also work with organisations that are committed to supporting and improving the mental health and well-being of young people and staff in schools. And we're particularly proud to be the supporter of an organisation called the Mindfulness in Schools Project, who are a not-for-profit organisation committed to having a positive impact on the mental health and well-being of young people in schools. Anyway, enough from me. I'm sure you're all keen to listen to the speakers that we've got lined up for you. So enjoy, and I hope you learn lots. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. That was great. And now I'm going to hand you over to Claire Hamilton-Russell from HR Family Law, who is going to give you a little insight into what she does, why she does it, and hopefully her route into the business and how she got there. So Claire, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Claire Hamilton-Russell and I'm a solicitor, and I'm going to share with you some of my experiences that I've acquired over the past 30 years or more. Being a lawyer, I'm going to start with a disclaimer. We have to keep all our clients' information highly confidential. And so whilst I can share with you some of my experiences because I have had cases reported, that means they're in the public domain and you can read about them online. A lot of our work is highly confidential and I have to protect clients' identities. So when I talk about experiences, I have tried to keep them quite generic so that privacy is preserved. I've divided my talk into 3 parts. The first is a bit about my career and what I've done. I've been very lucky to work in some amazing firms, and I can share that with you, both city firms and private client firms. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what a lawyer does. And then I will talk to you about the most important bit, how do you become a lawyer, and some of the routes and options that you will have. So I started off my life at Exeter University, where I did a degree in economics. And when I left, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. So I did the 2-year conversion course and training at what was a college of law. The first year is effectively a degree that's condensed, a law degree condensed into a year. It's quite hard work, but it's quite focused. And the second year is the academic training that all solicitors have to undertake at law school before they start off in an office. Whilst I was at law school, I applied for articles, which are now called training contracts. And I decided to do my articles in a city law firm. I had a financial background. and that's what interested me. So I took my first role at a firm called Travers Smith Braithwaite, now called Travers Smith. They are a leading city law firm, perhaps medium-sized rather than the very big international firms, but they are a top firm, Magic Circle city firm. And I chose Travers Smith because they had an amazing array of financial work. I really liked the people that I saw when I went round. I think being in a medium-sized firm, you get better experience. And they also looked after you both personally and financially when I was at law school. So that was a real consideration. And I really enjoyed my time there. City firms look after institutions. So they're looking after companies, they're looking after clients who have property portfolios, they're looking after banks, they're looking after financial institutions. And you've got two types of work you do. You can either do the transactional work, so that's company work, where you're buying and selling companies for your clients, or you're buying and selling properties, commercial properties for your property clients. You're involved in banking and you're involved in all the tax work that goes alongside. And then there's the contentious side, so that's when the deals have gone wrong or you haven't been able to buy the company you thought you were going to buy. And that's the litigation seat that I did. And that's sort of quite exciting. You go off to court, you have to go and get injunctions. It sort of works, the work moves quite quickly. You get an amazing experience working as a trainee or as an article clerk in a city law firm. They will really look after you. You'll learn to do all the skills that you need as a lawyer, so drafting, negotiations, you'll go to meetings, you'll learn how to do all the different areas of law that you work in and get very wide exposure. And you're very supported and helped. And you get a very wide experience. And at the end of my time, I really enjoyed the contentious work, so I qualified into commercial litigation. And it was a very exciting time to be in commercial litigation in the early 1990s, because a lot of it was when the country went into recession. And one of the clients that my firm looked after was the Maxwell Pension Fund trustees. Some of you will have heard of Robert Maxwell, who jumped off or was pushed off a yacht, having stolen a lot of money from the pension funds that were part of his company, and my firm's role was to try and find that money and get it back for the clients. It was really quick. It was through the courts and a lot of work, and it was hard work, but it was very exciting for those who were involved. I enjoyed my time there. I absolutely loved my time. I was there for 5 years in total. But my passion was more of the individual side of the work, the personal side I was undertaking. And so when I was 3 years qualified, I was very lucky to be offered a job at Farrers. Now, Farrers is one of the country's leading private client firms. And they look after a huge range of individuals, starting with the royal family. Most of the landed estates in our country are looked after by Farrers. They look after most schools, small institutions, charities, as well as a lot of wealthy individuals, both from England and abroad. Now, I was lucky enough to work in a lady called Fiona Shackleton's team. She was my boss. And some of you will have heard of Fiona. She did Prince Charles's divorce. She did Paul McCartney. And if you watch the news tonight, you will see her on, because she's acting for Princess Hire in the big case that's going through our courts at the moment against Sheikh Maktoum, and she's had all her personal phone compromised. So there's a big judgment about that will be on the news tonight. So it was a fascinating time. We looked after some amazing clients, huge experience of working with people that supported divorces. So a lot of big property firms, Knight Frank, Savills, looking after clients who wanted to sell houses. We had all the city institutions, so Schroders, Cazenoves, etc., who looked after our clients' finances. And importantly, we were able to work with some of the leading family barristers in the country. They really wanted to do our work. We wanted to work with them. So you build up some amazing relationships with the people who work with you and support with you. I was made a partner in 1998 with Fiona, and I then went on to work there for another 5 or 6 years, gaining huge experience. And I simply loved my time there. The problem for many women is commuting in and out of London when you're living in Hampshire, as I was by then, is quite draining, and there was no part-time working or working from home. Fortunately for everyone, that has all changed, but it was quite tough in those days. So in 2004, I was offered a job at a firm called Pennington's, which is a regional firm, and they had their family team based in Newbury, which was quite close to home. And I was appointed to be head of the family team at Pennington's. Now, Pennington's is a regional firm, and we've got a lot of regional firms in our country. They are firms with multi-offices, usually with an office in London, and they are a bit like a combination of Travers Smith and Farrers. So they do all the company work, and they also do the private client work, plus a lot of other areas of work that perhaps city firms are not interested in. So that you get huge experience. They are very good places to learn. You can be all over the country, but they do have, being so large, they do have some big clients. But I never really liked being in a big firm like that. I kind of wanted to go back to my days at Farrers where we did specialist work. And in 2013, I set up CHR Family Solicitors, which is a niche boutique divorce firm. And that is all we do, family work. And we are very well able to look after our clients. I hire people who are specifically trained to look after people going through a divorce or separation. And we are able to divert all our resources to looking after people rather than attending management meetings and being part of a big firm. And if I need tax advice or I need employment advice for my clients, there are lots of other firms out there that I can use. So I've got very good relationships with our other people, but we are specialist, and I have loved being my own boss. So what do we do? Well, all divorces start off by having a meeting with a client, and they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and you find out from them what's important to them, what they want to achieve, and how we go about it. Most of our work is financial. Most of the work involves dividing up the family assets and helping people move on and separate. Some of the work is quite short-lived. We're able to negotiate a settlement quite quickly. Other cases are much more protracted, and people are difficult, and sometimes we have to go to court. And ultimately, sometimes cases take 2 or 3 years to get into the courts and get sorted out. I have to say there's some cases that never really get sorted out, but most cases do. It's a fantastic way of working. We are very hands-on. You will be exposed to all sorts of clients, and like a Farrers, we've got a number of barristers that help us, and again we get all the support from other firms in other areas of work. So if we need help with tax, or we need help with properties and selling and buying properties for our clients, we have got people who will help. It is hugely rewarding to work in the private client sector. You're very hands-on, you get to know your clients really well, and you can make a real difference to them and their lives. So most people love what they do. Now, how do you become a lawyer? It's a very competitive profession at the moment. There are many, many people going to do law training at universities and at law colleges. And there are far too many people who've done the training for the number of jobs there are. So you have to expect to have a fight on your hands. The first thing to think about is university choices and whether or not you should do a law degree or a non-law degree. And my advice is quite clear. You need to do what you enjoy at university. Don't do a law degree just because you want to be a lawyer. If you want to do chemistry or you want to do French, or in my case economics, then do it, because it's 3 years at university and you want to do something that you love, and you're going to spend some time studying that subject. So if you start law and you don't like it, it's a pretty miserable option. Definitely go to a Russell Group university. It's very competitive to get through training contracts, and if you don't go to a good Russell Group university, you simply won't get through the sifting process. So you're going to need a good 2-1 in an academic subject at a Russell Group university to get through that general sift. Once you've decided what you want to do, you need to go to law school or another university that will do the law training. Now, if you're a non-lawyer, it's a 2-year process, but as of September this year, all the law training has just changed. So I'm slightly in the dark about how everything is going to work in the next few years, because there's a lot of options. But in summary, I think the big law firms or regional law firms are going to be looking for non-lawyers to have done a master's in law. What that means is doing a year course as a master's in law, which is effectively doing your 3-year degree in 1 year. And that's a bit like the old course that we did, which was called the Common Professional Exam, or LPC. So, sorry, GDR, to get the right words. So you need to do this year at a university doing your master's. And then your second year, you're going to be doing something called an SQE. It's a solicitor's qualification, which all lawyers are going to have to do. So that's, again, a variety of institutions you can do it at. And I don't think it makes too much difference where you do it. It's going to be the same exams. If you're fortunate enough to have got a training contract by this stage, and training contracts are given out quite early, you will probably be guided as to where you go and do your exams, and they will organise courses for you. Now, getting a job is really quite tough, and I'm sorry to say that there is positive discrimination from quite a lot of firms against people who've been privately educated. And what that means is you've just got to fight a bit harder. There are lots of people who will employ you. It is a stage you're going to have to go through just to get through this training contract. And I'm very confident, having spoken to a lot of other fellow professionals, that once you've got over and you've done your training contract, then the world is opened up and people are less discriminatory. They're much more interested in your experience and what you've done. But this training process has become much more competitive, and it is difficult to get a job. So expect disappointment, and the way to get around it is to try and get as much experience as you can, take up any job offers you can get, go and work for local law firms, use all the contacts you've got, family, friends, schools, universities, get some experience, because that's going to really count. Now, training contracts given out by most of the big firms and regional firms, it's 2 years in a firm where you will do up to 3 or 4 seats of 6 months in different areas of the law. So if you go into the city, you'll be doing property, commercial work, litigation. If you go to private client firms, you'll be doing more family, employment, some company work, property work. It's all, it depends on what you want to do and what interests you. But the most important thing is just to get that contract, because once you get into a law firm, you can then spread your wings. I started off as a city lawyer. I'm now a specialist family lawyer. You can move, you can change, but having good firms on your CV is really important. So keep going. And if you get to the stage of not getting a training contract, just can't get a job, think about what's called paralegal work. So firms like mine I've got 2 paralegals here. They're both law graduates. They have done some of their training. One of them's been to law school, one of them hasn't. One of them's just left Exeter University with a degree in philosophy. So she's got all the exams to do, but she's doing a year's work with us. She'll get huge experience, and that will count towards getting her training contract. You can use that so to count for some of the training, so she won't have to do the full 2 years. It's much more flexible now. They've just introduced with these new criteria different ways you can qualify. So my advice is you've just got to be persistent. Expect to fail, but just keep going, because someone will be out there and will give you a job. You will get a training contract, even if you have a little bit of disappointment, and then you'll be flying. I have absolutely loved my time as a lawyer. I really wouldn't have changed it for anything. It's hugely rewarding, both emotionally and financially, and it's a career that I commend to people if that's what you want to do. So I hope that's given some help. And if anyone's ever got any questions, please follow up. You can find me on LinkedIn and through our website. Thank you.
Claire, that was brilliant. I mean, there's clearly a lot of work going on there, but some really clear sort of advice as to how to get into the business, which is really encouraging. And so thank you for that. So now we move over to a very different business, engineering, Jaguar Land Rover, Alex Heslop and his team, who are trying to create JLR as being the best software company to buy your car from, which I think is a fascinating idea. So without further ado, Alex, I'm going to hand over to you.
We create the cars that make more of people's worlds. through generations of world-beating British design, British engineering, and British manufacturing. We have built a heritage to be proud of. These are the most capable cars, the most beautiful cars, the most desirable cars. Today, we connect our customers' worlds, getting them from where they are to where they want to be. Transforming how we travel and how we live. Today, we connect our customers' lives, giving them access to the information that they need, putting control right at their fingertips, and keeping them safe from harm so that they can broaden their horizons and enjoy the ride. We are creating the future now, always going above and beyond. We're re-engineering engineering itself. We're redesigning design so that we can be better, create better, live better, creating experience people will love for life.
Well, hi and good evening. My name's Alex. I'll give you a little wave because there's four of us sat here. I just want to introduce Harriet. Harriet joined us in 2020 as a graduate. We've got Ian. Ian joined us in 2017. Yeah. He's on the degree apprenticeship scheme. And Nikki behind us is here to make sure that I don't say anything I shouldn't do. And part of the reason that we've got Harriet and Ian with us is that, well, frankly, I'm as old as your parents. I've worked here for 25 years. And I thought it was better for me to spend a little bit of time talking about engineering and how I got into it, but then hand over to Harriet and Ian, who hopefully can tell you what it's really going to be like for you guys, because they've both much more recently than me been through it. So that's our plan of attack over the 20 minutes. We're lucky enough to work at Jaguar Land Rover. Hopefully you are familiar with those products, and certainly the video hopefully brought that to life. There's 40,000 plus people that actually work for Jaguar Land Rover. There's 10,000 engineers. We all work in the engineering department, and the electrical, electronics and software team is 2,000 people. And that's a global team of 2,000 people. In fact, it's a global engineering team. We have engineering locations. We're sat here joining you in Warwickshire, in Gaydon in the Midlands. But we also have an engineering centre in Manchester, an engineering centre in Shanghai, an engineering centre in Portland in the US, an engineering centre in Shannon in Ireland, and an engineering centre also in Hungary, which is in Budapest. So we are very much a global engineering firm. We sell cars in 180 different countries around the world, and in a normal production year, we'd build in excess of 600,000 cars. You may be familiar that there's a bit of a silicon crisis going on in the electronics industry at the moment, which is certainly hindering our volumes somewhat, and that's a global issue as an outcome of the COVID pandemic. But as a place to work, it is fantastic. But perhaps before I'm talking about Jaguar Land Rover, I'd actually first like to start talking about engineering and why I'd love you all to get into engineering. I think first and foremost, if you like to create things, if you like to problem solve, and if you like to work with teams of people interrogating data forming views and then making something from it that manifests itself into a product, a vehicle, or into a service associated to that vehicle, then get into engineering. It is unbelievably rewarding. I have been here for 26 years now. And in fact, I've probably said this on the day you guys joined. Whilst I've been here for 26 years, it feels like 26 months. It doesn't seem 2 minutes since I joined, because of the opportunities you have to go around the world, make things, and drive products forwards. And that is so true of any engineering activity. It's the best thing in the world to be involved in engineering something and creating something, and then you see that product in the marketplace, be it a car, be it some part of a house, be it an air conditioning system, be it a piece of software electronics that enables an app to work on one of these phones that I'm sure you all have. It's brilliant. So I can't encourage you any more than that. Moving close to home to automotive, why should you move into automotive? It is going through an absolute transformation. The industry's been around over 100 years now, and for the first 100 years, we had combustion engines and we put them into cars, and then we grew out those cars to look more cool, have more features, go anywhere. Obviously with Land Rover, go and win all sorts of races with Jaguar. And that's how it's been for 100 years. And then about 10 years ago, the automotive industry has started to transform into something that's much closer to technology industries. And we have an acronym. In fact, we love acronyms in automotive engineering. In fact, JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, is what we all refer to ourselves as. And we have an acronym for the automotive industry and the change that we're going through, and that's called ACES. And ACES is about four things. It's about autonomy, automated and assisted driving vehicles that can drive themselves, make your life safer and give you time back. Connectivity, having a seamless connection between how you interact with devices at home and devices in the car and devices as you leave the car and go to your place of journey, place of arrival. Your ability to be able to interact with your vehicle as a device through one of these. So I can remotely start my engine, I can preset the climate, I can tell it that I want it to charge the battery between the hours of 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. because that's when I'm going to get cheap electricity. That sort of connectivity is massively important. We then have electrified. So this is all about the electrification. So we're moving from combustion engines into electric propulsion, so batteries and electric drive units. That is fundamentally changing the CO2 consumption of the car, but it's also transforming the performance of the car. That instantaneous torque that you get from electrified engines is mind-blowing. And that is driving a complete change in the way an automobile handles. You know, 20 years ago, Jaguar would have sold themselves on a 0 to 60 time and a top speed and probably a range of fuel. As all the automotive industry moves to propulsion, no longer is 0 to 60 time as relevant, because actually that instantaneous torque just gives you, harmonizes the performance of all vehicles. So therefore we have to differentiate, which is where the connected and the autonomous piece comes in within automotive. And then the final part of ACES is S. So S for shared. And that's actually the method by which people are purchasing cars and how they are using cars. And you know, we are getting all sorts of new entrants into the automotive industry be it from the west coast of America, be it from out in China or many other places around the world. And that activity is also driving a different business models so that people use our cars in different ways, and the way they share their cars, the way they lease the cars, the way they hire the cars by the hour, by the minute, is changing all of the time. And we have to be there to respond to that. We have to be there to make sure that we've got an app that you can log into because you've just landed in, I don't know, New York, and you want to go and drive a Jaguar or a Land Rover. Those sorts of features and functions and that ability to share vehicles anywhere in the world is all around how people are using our vehicles. Now, whilst we are going through a massive amount of change and a massive amount of re-engineering of our products, we have to obviously make sure that we attract the brightest talent. And in trying to attract really bright talent, we have to implore to you guys and say, well, hopefully you aspire to own our products. Hopefully you want to be involved in creating the next device in a car, the next Jaguar, the next Land Rover. And that hopefully is something that as you see them driving past you on the roads, you go, do you know what, that's a cool car. I'd really, really like to go and work on that. And even after 25, 26 years here, I can say that I still get the hairs on the back of my neck standing up as a car drives past me and I go, hey, do you know what? I worked on that car. That is one of the best feelings in the world. And that's something that's specialist about the automotive industry, because it's a thing that's seen anywhere in the world. I can go anywhere in the world, talk to anyone. I say I work for Jaguar Land Rover. You are pretty much guaranteed that they will know what a Jaguar or a Land Rover is, and at some point they'll have some connection to it, and suddenly you'll get talking to them, and then the rest of the conversation goes from there. So at that point, I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to hand over to Harriet, and Harriet's going to tell you a bit about being a grad and how to become a grad at JLR. Harriet.
So I am a second-year graduate engineer. I joined the company last year after graduating university. I studied electronic and electrical engineering at university, and also did an undergraduate placement with Jaguar Land Rover back in 2018 to 19. For me, engineering was something that I was always interested in because I loved maths. I was good at maths and I found it interesting. And for me, engineering kind of became the route that I wanted to go into when my granddad bought me my first Land Rover Defender, 1948 Defender, when I was 15. And so we didn't even have an engine in it when we bought it. So I kind of said to myself, I want to work for Land Rover one day, to be part of the team to create the new generation of cars. And actually, similar to what Alex was saying about joining a business and saying, I worked on that car. My first car vehicle line that I worked on my undergraduate placement was actually the new Defender, which was a huge thing for me because it was the one car that made me say, I want to work for Land Rover. So in terms of how I got into JLR was through the undergrad scheme. I was at university, wanted to take a sandwich year, so we take a year out. I applied for the early careers team, and there was various undergrad placements that were available. Could have either done 3 months, 12 months, or 15 months through different departments, whether that was electrical or mechanical or manufacturing. And then I was offered the job, and then from then I was then offered a graduate job, hence where I am now, where I currently work in electrical. And the best thing I found about the graduate scheme is that you're able to rotate around to find other areas that you might be interested in. And I'm actually currently working in electrical launch, where I'm working over in Solihull, developing and testing the new Range Rover that we're hopefully going to be showing the world.
The super top secret one that not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
But,
So that's been absolutely amazing to not only be involved in creating a car that people haven't even seen yet, but be able to have another car that drives past me on the road and I can go, I worked on that. So yeah, working for JLR is an amazing company. You've got opportunities coming at you left, right and centre, and it's just an opportunity that you can't turn down when you've been offered it. So yes, that's all from me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Harriet. Ian.
Yeah, I'm Ian. I'm 22, so I've been with JLR for 4 years now. I started straight out of sixth form at 18, so I applied year 13, start of year 13, I think. Applications, I think, are open in January for the degree apprenticeship. So I applied here. I've got a place at Birmingham University to do mechanical engineering, but I chose not to do that. Couldn't turn down Jaguar Land Rover and to learn on the job. I think it's a great opportunity. So I've been here for 4 years. It's a great experience to be part of such a big team, developing new cars. One of the great things about being an apprentice is you're learning on the job. So as well as going to university, you get to work as well. And don't get me wrong, it's hard, but you get the best out of it, because university is good, but then the work you do at JLR will apply to uni and you see it in real life. So it's not all theory, which is great. And there's so many opportunities. So I started in a CAD team, so computer aided design, and it was great. It was good, but I knew it wasn't where I wanted to be. I wanted to be more hands-on. And the apprenticeship gives you the opportunity to go and see so much more of the business. So I've been working in off-road, I've done vehicle testing, and now I found myself in the assisted and automated driving team, which is where I'm now working on radars. So yeah, there's so many placements you can do throughout Jaguar Land Rover, and it's a really good place to be. I know people who have been on test trips abroad. I mean, people who have been to launch at Nitra, where we made the new Defender. So there's plenty of opportunities around, and I'd really encourage people to get involved. I think I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school. I kind of knew engineering was kind of where I wanted to be. So I applied for I obviously had my place at uni, but I came to this and I've never really looked back. It's been great. There's so many opportunities to get involved in multiple different things. Engineering is not just one topic. There's so many other things going on in software. There's actually, you can get your hands dirty and get on cars and things like that. So it's a really interesting place to be.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ian. So I guess hopefully that gives you a flavour of two routes into first of all engineering, and both of these routes apply not only to JLR but any engineering industry that you want to get into. But I guess a final bit of PR from me, I guess, or plea to all of you, is that we'll be recruiting about 500 early careers people during 2022, both through the degree apprenticeship and also as a postgrad. And if you love creating, problem solving, working in teams, and love cars, please come and join us, because you will not look back. Thanks very much.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Harriet and Ian as well. It's really nice to see two examples of young people, getting into that sort of business through different routes. So actually, that's really encouraging for everyone who's watching this. So look, we've got lots of questions. We've been flooded with questions from our very eager audience. So I'm going to read them out kind of randomly, I think. First one is for you, Claire, actually. It says here, is it common practice for companies to fund the law conversion course of non-law students?
I can't be 100% up to date about this, but the big law firms, certainly in London, will offer money to support students through both the conversion course and through their degree, through the training that they do for the solicitors to get their solicitors qualification as well. Big firms will support. Some of the regional firms will give some support. It's not a given, but most firms are looking to support more graduates, especially now that they're trying to increase diversity and they want to stop discrimination because people can't afford to go to law school. So the answer is yes, there are firms that will do it, and quite a lot will if they're bigger firms.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, one for you, Alex, here. How would you compete in the small electric car market, which seems to be the future?
So what was the question? How do what?
How will you compete in the small electric car market, which seems to be the future?
We don't intend to be making smaller vehicles. They will definitely be electric vehicles. The rate at which the move from combustion to electric is varying globally. So UK is definitely amongst the first to be legislating. And we operate in the premium market, the more luxurious end, and that's not size related, that's perhaps price point for size. And that will certainly move to be electrified much faster than other areas. But I think because we do sell cars in pretty much every country in the world, we have to make sure that we are delivering global products, and therefore that diversification of combustion all the way through to electric, fuel cell, and the hybridization in between. We have to engineer and deliver all of those.
Okay, I think that's a fair comment. One more for you, Claire, here. Do you think it's vital to study an academic subject before converting to law, or is it equally notable to study a subject such as criminology?
So my view is that most of the people recruiting in the law market are going to be people of my age or similarly dinosaur-like, and having an academic subject on your CV is really important. People understand that a degree in physics or in French or economics, has a certain academic attraction to it, and I feel that that's going to stand you in much better stead than doing subjects that are perhaps less known by people. They don't quite know how to measure them. So my very firm advice is do an academic subject and do it at a Russell Group university, because everybody understands what that means, and it will be on your CV for life. This is really important.
Okay, and a similar question, I guess, to Alex. It says here, how can you be an engineer without studying engineering at university? I think we've learned that that's possible, but what's your view on that?
Well, I think first and foremost, you don't have to go to university to be an engineer. You can naturally be a brilliant engineer. But if you want to get into engineering, there are a couple of prerequisites, maths and physics. And perhaps if I hand over to Nikki to just confirm from an early careers point of view the requirements, that would be handy.
Yes, so it is. Maths is key. So you need to be studying maths to join any of our early careers programmes. And then one other science, if you're going to go down the engineering route. We have got other kind of early career opportunities in commercial, but engineering particularly, you need a science to complement that.
Yeah, so I did A-levels a long time ago, and I did maths, physics, extra maths, and design. And then
I did maths, further maths, and electronics.
I did maths, physics, and economics.
Okay, so that's a full house of maths and physics, and some other subjects around that. So that's how they get into engineering.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Claire, this one just amuses me a little bit. It says here, my dad's a lawyer and he works all the time. Is this what you have to expect?
The answer is yes. Lawyers work really hard. If you go into a city firm, you will be working your socks off. When you're young, it's really quite fun. They look after you. You will have breakfast at the office, you'll have supper, you'll get a taxi home, and you have to be expecting to give up part of your life. But you are really well rewarded and you'll enjoy the people you work with. It was one of the reasons I moved to Farrers. I just didn't want to be there till midnight so often, and that is a slightly better work-life balance. But I think with all jobs nowadays, professional jobs, everyone is really busy and you just have to expect to work quite hard. but with working hard comes reward. And I mean, for example, tomorrow night I'm going to an event where I've got 3 judges who are speaking, and there'll be drinks afterwards with fellow professionals. So there's quite a nice social life with your job as well. So it's not all all hard work and no play. It is fun, but yes, you do have to work quite hard. But the rewards are great.
Okay, brilliant. Good life lesson there. I like that one. So, question to both of you. Same question. I'm going to put it to Alex first, and this is a question that, we're talking tonight to 17, 18-year-olds who may go on to university, so might not be moving into the work environment for, let's say, 4 or 5 years or whatever it might be. How do you think, Alex, that your business is going to change in the next 4 to 5 years? What are the key changes you think will develop?
Well, actually, one thing. First of all, hopefully, some of you guys will come to us through the degree apprenticeship route. So, could be working with us next year whilst doing a degree that we pay for. To answer the question about where we be in 5 years, the engineering of a new vehicle takes 4 years as a minimum. So we're already working on the cars that you will see around in 5 years. They will all be electrified. They will all have, so by that I mean have some level of electric propulsion as well as combustion. They will all have higher levels of automated driving. So the vehicle is doing the driving. You don't have to have your hands on the steering wheel, the brakes and the accelerator. And they will all become more integrated into your digital world than you can possibly imagine. From things like, I'm fairly sure you'll probably be using Google Assistant or Alexa to turn things on and off at home. In the extremely near future, you'll be doing similar things like that in cars. So there's some insight.
Okay, thanks, Alice. And Claire, same question to you. What's going to change in the next 4 to 5 years, do you think?
So things we've seen changing in the pandemic is a huge move to work at home and work remotely, and for flexible working arrangements, which were pretty few and far between in the profession prior to the pandemic. But I think those side of things are here to stay, as are remote court hearings, not for all court work, but that's a good thing, that we can do some of our shorter cases remotely. So that's quite a big thing for lawyers, because we're not always very technical, and so to have to operate in a different way is quite something we've all had to embrace. But that said, lawyers are about people, and high-end lawyers are always going to be in demand, in my view. We're going to see less of the big sort of multi-firms, less specialism. I think you're going to see more firms like mine. We've already seen this area of growth where people are going to want to have specialist lawyers, and they can shop around for going to the right sort of firm for the law they want. So big city firms will survive, and a lot of the other regional firms are going to be much more niche, rather than going to big firms where one size fits all. I think that's going to be a big change.
Okay, fascinating. Okay, so look, thanks, guys. Before we say goodbye, I just want to remind everyone who's on here tonight to turn up same place, same time tomorrow, 6:30 login, 7 o'clock start. We've got a great lineup tomorrow. Jamie Lang is coming, not to talk about Made in Chelsea or his cha-cha-cha, but about his amazingly successful sweet business, which is a really fascinating story. And we also have Dr. Tatiana Hyde on a more down-to-earth, very practical, but really important business of being in medicine, and especially the NHS. So please turn up tomorrow and support that. Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Harriet. Thank you, Ian. Great to talk to you. Thanks for sparing your time. And thank you to all of those who've been watching, and hopefully see you all tomorrow. Good night.